Welcome to We Make Children's Books, the podcast that takes us through the imaginative minds of children's book authors and artists. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're honored to have with us the Eisner Award-winning and highly talented editor, cartoonist, and creator of Kid Beowulf, Alexis Fajardo.
Hello, Barney. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Welcome. This is exciting stuff. So you've been working on Kid Beowulf for 20 years since you started in 2003. You're launching through crowdfunder a Kid Beowulf series that is songs and sagas, which is 5 stories and one collection in
So for those who have never seen my work before, who are not familiar with Kid Beowulf, yes, I have been doing it for 20 years. I don't know how that happened. I started in 2003. It started as like a little zine, a black and white thing. And in the course of those many years, it turned into like a comic book and then a graphic novel. And then I played with self-publishing, traditional publishing, I run the gamut. And through all that, time has flown and somehow I'm still making comics, which is great. But it's Kid Beowulf is it's my middle grade mythological graphic novel series. It's inspired by the old epic poem Beowulf, and in my version, basically the big Viking Beowulf and the Grendel monster that he fights are in fact 12-year-old twin brothers, and they go across Europe and Asia, meeting other epic heroes, getting into other adventures. And if you're a fan of things like Bone or Sagi Yojimbo or Wings of Fire, it sort of fits into that genre of fun myth-based adventure stories. Basically, these are short stories that I've been doing over the years. During those 20 years, when I wasn't doing the main story, which at this point comprises 4 200-page graphic novels. In between those books, I would take little breaks and do like a 20-page story here, or a 15-pager, or a 50-pager, and just try and explore some of the characters that I developed in some side quests and side stories, and really they were stories that I did for fun because I just love making comics, but I also sort of view them as experiments. For instance, there's a story that was about that I wanted to just try and do like a chase story that was just like a pantomime, no word balloons, just sound effects. I just wanted to do a 20-page chase story. So that's one of these short stories. And then I thought I should really see if I can even, do a comedic, lighthearted story. So I have like a 15-page, very gag-oriented story. So these stories, which I've called Songs and Sagas, is this collection that I'm now bringing to crowdfunder. And if you've never read Kid Beowulf before, it's like a great primer. It gives you kind of taste for what the mythology is. And if you have read the other 4 books, this is sort of like those Easter egg stories that, you get a little bit more about certain characters. You can learn a little bit more about the mythos. So I think it's a neat little package. I'm excited to finally bring it to a crowdfunder, to have enough stories that comprise a book. Because the first short story that I did, I think was back in like 2016. And then, and since then, in that time, I've sort of, hopped around and done more. And so finally, the last short story that I did, I published online last year. And now I was like, oh, well, I have enough now that I can make a book. So let's make a book.
This is 228 pages. So this is not a simple side project you're working on. This is a major undertaking that you've done. Like, how did you have time to do this? And did you have to sacrifice some time telling them your main story arc for this?
Oh, sure. Yes. Well, the larger books are about the same length. Like the one full story is about 200 pages. Book 2, I think, ended up being like 270 pages. I don't know what I was thinking. It nearly killed me. After that, I was like, okay, I gotta pare it down. So books 3 and 4 subsequently are sort of hit that 200-page mark, which takes a long time. Like, I'm sure you've spoken to other creators. Making comics takes a long time, and I have a day job, so I have to sort of juggle that. And so the graphic novels, I think on average would take like a year to a year and a half production time. Then you've got like that whole 6 to 9 months of just sort of the back end of like actually getting it ready for print and all that stuff. But after doing a 200-page straight story, after being completely exhausted and not wanting to be near my drawing board, eventually that itch would come back. Like, okay, I got to do a new story. But diving into another full-length 200-page story was just sometimes too daunting. So that's where these little stories, they became like a little refresher to kind of keep me engaged in the storylines I was doing, but also just fresh at the board and just trying to keep those muscles active, the storytelling muscles of either writing or drawing or inking or what have you, any component of the comics creation process. It just sort of was important to keep going. So
you write it and you also illustrate. You're the cartoonist for it and you write it. But you have somebody outside that does the coloring.
I have a colorist. His name is Jose. He's great. We've worked together since maybe 2016. He's actually based in the Philippines. And I found him through some other friends who had done some comics, and they recommended him. And he and I have been working together. You know, we've never actually met in person, which is kind of crazy, but through the marvel of the internet age, we're able to send art back and forth. And what's really nice is over the years, we've developed a nice shorthand. So he, you know, I'll send him the black and white pages. He'll send me back flats, which is basically just kind of dropping the color in. Yeah. But he'll he'll put in the orange hair for Beowulf and the green skin for Grendel. And he sort of has a sense of some of the palette that I like. We go back and forth, tighten up those flats. And then when it's ready, he'll go off and he'll do the final sheen, so to speak, of like adding in shadow, adding in lighting effects, making it really pop with mood and color. And he really brings the books to life in a special way. And prior to, hooking up with Jose, the books were self-published in black and white. So it sort of had a life as a black and white comic. And then finally, as I've always envisioned it, in color. So it's nice to work with somebody as talented as him.
And you also, in the letters in the comic, are based off of your own handwriting, correct? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have a font that's built out of my handwriting. Because I actually work traditionally for as much as I can. I'll do everything on Bristol board. I'll do the panels with blue Prismacolor. I'll draw in the characters with pencil, and I'll ink it, and then it becomes a digital document. I'll scan that into the computer, and that's where Jose and I will work on the color. And that's also when I start to drop in the letters. Yeah, there's an example of a page right now. So I have a lot of friends who are cartoonists who are entirely digital, and I have others who are completely traditional. And then I'm sort of kind of in the middle. I use the computer and Photoshop specifically to help things like word balloons and sound effects. And but having a font made out of my handwriting kind of gives it it just makes it look more hand done. It has that quality that I certainly like for comics, and it just kind of keeps it all together as sort of a singular kind of look.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned too, like some of your inspirations that you mentioned with Bone, and you did mention in a previous interview, which you haven't mentioned yet, and it pretty much shows us here is like Asterix and Obelix as well as one of your inspirations.
So, okay, let me ask you: are you familiar with Asterix and Obelix?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. Wow. I only ask because sometimes I will mention that. Sometimes it's very apparent to people when they look at my work, like, oh, I see an echo of Asterix here. Other times they'll say, well, it looks familiar. I don't know what it is. And you know what I'll do? I'll show them actually my phone case, which is Asterix and Obelix. And like, oh, yeah. And other times people have never heard of them before. At least in America, they're not quite as prevalent as they are in Europe. And for those viewers of yours who might not be familiar with it, it's a French comic. It was made in the 60s. They actually still create it, but it was one of those first comics that I discovered as a kid, and that really sort of inspired me to like, hey, I want to make comics, and I kind of want to make them look like this. And so it's always sort of been a North Star, along with folks like Jeff Smith and Stan Sakai, to sort of create a comic that is as engaging and as fun as some of those. So I'm glad that you know Asterix and Obelix. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about your crowdfunder campaign. What can people expect from what you have set up as your levels?
This is an experiment for me, because prior to this, I have self-published and gone through the other platform, Kickstarter, which I was actually planning to do that for this book, and then through some mutual connections that we have through Kids Comics Unite and other friends and in the crowdfunding world, I caught wind of this other platform, Crowdfunder, that was doing this really cool kids and YA creator spotlight in July, which was when I was going to launch my Kickstarter. So I thought, okay, well, let's see what this is about. Maybe I can switch gears and try my hand at Crowdfunder, see how it's similar to Kickstarter, see how it's different. It operates very similarly to Kickstarter, but it also has some really cool, unique features that worked well for my campaign. Specifically, just sort of like focusing on the book at hand. So, at the very top there, you see two different versions of the book. There's the traditional mass market paperback, I would call it, which is that blue copy there.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a soft cover edition. It's full color interior. It has that very familiar 6x9 trim size that I think if you read graphic novels these days is kind of the standard. And it's about 228 pages. So that's the one that is, as I said, is the mass. And then for the crowdfunder, I thought, it'd be fun to do sort of a souped up hardcover edition. Maybe throw in some extra essays and making of material in the back. And that's the one that's in the purple. And it's a really handsome, actually I have a proof of that one too. It's a handsome edition, and
wow,
printing's really nice in there too. And so it was neat to sort of just offer these two different things, two different ways to get the content. Because for previous Kickstarters, I offered a similar thing where there was like a standard mass edition and this artist collector's edition, and folks really seemed to like the idea that there was this second option that was really specific to the Kickstarter or the crowdfunder. So I wanted to do that again with this copy of Songs and Sagas. So those are the two main rewards. But I have other things in there too. To commemorate the 20th anniversary of Kid Beowulf, I'm doing these cool sketch cards. I've actually been these are what some of the
awesome
original art looks like that I've been doing in the off hours. And if you go to my Instagram, I do these neat little time-lapse videos where you can see me drawing the characters. So a fun, approachable way to get some original art, I thought would be fun to do sketch cards. And then in some cases, there are some rewards that are like digging into the archives and some of those other projects that I've done. Like I've got a plush for one of my characters, Hama the pig.
Good old Hama. Hama's been around since day one. I know.
Yeah. He's their stalwart companion, and I did a crowdfunder a couple of years ago where I did a storybook featuring Hama, and I thought, the best thing to pair with this for these super young readers, like 6-year-olds, would maybe be a plush. So that was a fun opportunity, and so he's available for this crowdfunder. And then I have like the big pack. So like, if you've never read Kid Beowulf before, there's like the adventure pack that has all 4 books plus the new one. That's there it is right at the bottom. That's a great starter kit. And then if you are into collectibles, I have these really neat 3D prints. For instance, if you scroll up there, her name is Tarpeia and Peaky the Woodpecker. And they're characters that come from the 4th book. And they're these hand-painted, 3D printed sculpts. I had a couple of those left in the archives, so I thought it'd be neat to offer those as a reward. And then there's another set for the super high-end, one-of-a-kind backer. I have this trio of Beowulf, Grendel, and Hama the pig. And there are 3 sculpts. They sit in this neat base, but they're all individual sculpts, and And those I've done over the years. I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of great talented artists, and I love, taking my characters and seeing what they look like in 3D. And so I commissioned some sculptors, and anyway, I have one final set left, and I thought, okay, I'll trot it out for the crowdfunder, and if somebody wants to get it, it'll be theirs. But the crowdfunder has just been a fun way to share just some of those archival 20th anniversary things alongside this brand new book. During the Kickstarter month, for folks who've never read my stuff, I decided, well, I should share one of those short stories. And so every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm doing a new episode from this short story, Shield and the Dragon, which was really the first short story that I did. Sort of proved to myself that, I can do a short story. It's fun to do. It's fun to kind of like dive deep into like a character story. There are only 3 characters in this, as opposed to like the 25 that sometime my cast of thousands, which can kill me sometimes. So it was really just nice to just, I'm going to draw 3 characters, and it's going to be it. And it's a fun story. I like it a lot.
So you said you were inspired by, obviously, the story Beowulf from this. How much do you do a deep dive after 20 years? Obviously, is that I'm sure you have something along the lines of like a pretty established world building aspect to this universe that you created. How much do you have to over the span to kind of edit yourself to say, actually, that's not the real backstory of this character? Like, how much do you have to do when you get back into working on Kid Beowulf that you have to kind of reread your archives to remember where you left off, or remember where you want to go from there?
It's a great question. Well, you can see on either side of me are these tall bookshelves. A lot of those are actually just different translations of either Beowulf or the Odyssey, or there's my comic collection in there too. But if you can't already tell, I'm a big classics nerd. So I love those epics, and I reread them. And just the other day, I'm not kidding, I was rereading Beowulf again, another different adaptation. And the reason I revisit these all the time is because I'm constantly gleaning something new from the text that I can put into my story. So whenever I'm in the midst of doing a new story, like for instance, I'm sort of in this, when I'm not crowdfunding this month, I'm in a writing production phase. I'm trying to figure out the story for the next book in the series, which is number 5, and which takes Beowulf and Grendel to Greece. And it'll be inspired by the Greek epics, specifically the Odyssey, and then some other mythology like the Labyrinth story. So a lot of that beginning process is me rereading those stories and seeing, well, what is it about this story that I want to bring into mind? What are the themes I want to play with? And right now I'm in a phase where I'm just jotting down ideas, long form, of what could be in book 5. I might throw all of this out. I have no idea if it's any good, but I'm just like trying to get stuff on the page and then get it to a place where I can then type it out as a script and work on it. But I do on occasion, reread the books, the ones that I've done. And sometimes I feel like the new book is an opportunity to either maybe fix a mistake or a tangent that maybe didn't work so well in one of the earlier books, and just kind of massage it and tweak it. That's actually where some of these short stories come into play too. Like where I can, expand on a pair of characters who maybe got short shrift in one of the larger books, and then in a short story, I can really kind of dig in and see what they're about. So I really like the formats, whether it's a graphic novel or a short story. It's all just super fun to come up with those stories. The enemy is time. They just don't have enough time. So,
well, but you also, because your day job, you work in the creative arts in your day job as well. So how do you manage your enthusiasm of using that same part of your brain after work to work on your own creative endeavors?
I don't do it after work. I do it before work. So I know that
that's smart.
I just get up early in the morning, and I'll square away at least a couple hours before my day job starts, because I've found that that's sort of when I'm most creative is that early morning time. So, and that's my time, and I'm going to be very stingy with it. And so the day job, they'll get me for 8 hours, but those crucial little early hours in the morning are mine. And then at the end of the day, I'll come back to Kid Beowulf. And of course, the weekends are devoted to that. I have a very patient wife. So I just try and like claw and scrap time wherever I can. And then when I'm in that writing phase that I'm in now, I can sort of make it work. But when those days come where I have to like be at the board for long hours drawing, because that's really what takes a long time, that can be more challenging. And so it's, again, I get up early in the morning and try and, you know, pencil a few panels beforehand. Those long hours at the drawing board are really what I need during the weekends. And so it's still a struggle. I'm still trying to figure out like, what is the best way? How can I be the most efficient? I'm still trying to figure that out. If you have any tips, please pass them along. I'll take them. So.
And so how does the process, do you actually write out a script first, or do you just like thumbnail out a story and then write the script afterwards?
I'm a writer first.
Okay.
So I will script out what sort of like is a hybrid of like a screenplay. So I'll do, and very much it's a script that is my writer self telling my drawing self what to draw. So it's sort of like, you know, page 1, 6-panel layout, panel 1, such and such character is overlooking, they're spying on this, you know, this place, you know, below ground, describing the action, the characters, what they're going to say. I used to thumbnail, you know, do these elaborate little thumbnails, but then I found that I lost a lot of energy when I tried to transfer those thumbnails to the actual page. So now I actually skip real thumbnailing and I just do the panel boxes alongside the script. That kind of just helps me with pacing. And of course, it's something I can adjust when I get to that final Bristol board. If I feel like it's not working. After doing so many books, I've sort of figured out a method that works for me, that keeps the energy hopefully alive on the page by the time I get to drawing it. It's tricky though to kind of figure out that balance.
Well, because one of your jobs, you also is an editor. So do you have somebody read your script before you actually start drawing it out, or do you just?
I probably should. I should have. I mean, I have a couple of beta readers, and you know, people I trust who are familiar with the other books that I've done, kind of have a sense of where I want to take the story, and are themselves very good with story. So it's a select few that I'll pass that script on to. But the other thing is, you know, sometimes I've also been releasing the books online as web comics, and it's interesting to get, you know, whether it's on Go Comics or my own site, people will comment, and that's an interesting way to get feedback. I mean, by that point, the comic is, you know, 90% done. So what they're going to comment on is not necessarily helpful for that story, but it's something that I lock away in the back of my brain for the future story. Sort of like, I have to clarify this, or maybe that gag didn't land as well as it could. Yeah, in terms of the editorial process, I have a couple of trusted folks, but a lot of it is me kind of just going at it on my own, because as you mentioned, my day job is very collaborative. And fun, but at the end of the day, it's sort of like, it's important to have that space that's all your own, that you control, that you can dictate. So it's nice to have that too.
And so, because as we said earlier, you at the top of the show, you've been doing this for 20 years now. At what point, or has there been an evolution in who this story is for? Because you add in, there's an educational aspect to it. Do you tell this story because you want to tell this story and it's something that you want to do? Or is this something where you're saying, this is important for people to be educated on, you know, world mythology, and it's important that I can say it in a different lens for people to learn more about the world history and cultures that we're a part of?
Right. That second half has sort of been, that was never my initial intent. I never wanted to be didactic about Beowulf, teaching the classics to anybody. I just naturally love those stories. And actually, when I did the first book, The Bloodbound Oath, it originally was published in 2008. So I don't know if we can even think back that far, but that was like a lifetime ago in the term, in the scheme of like graphic novels and what they are now for, you know, very much dominated by things like Scholastic and the kids market. I mean, back then, my North Star was Jeff Smith's self-published Bone. I actually have a copy of like The Great Cow Race that he did back in like the day, the black and white version. These are the books that I gobbled up, and I'm like, oh, I want to kind of do what he's doing and like telling an expansive story with these cartoony sort of, characters and but like deep mythological themes. I love Joseph Campbell and that world mythology kind of stuff. So if you were to look at the 2008 version of Kid Beowulf, but the black and white has that kind of grittier feel. And it was only in the process of doing it in 2008, seeing what readers were actually being attracted to it, which were people who read Bone, and then they were introducing it to their kids. So I never really thought about it specifically for kids. That's only sort of evolved over the course of many years. And so I've adapted because I know that, that's really my primary readership. And that's exciting too, because now, as you say, like I can introduce them to these stories and sort of think about how they're thinking about these characters, what they want to get from them. So I don't think it's necessarily changed my initial approach. I'm just a little bit more cognizant about who the end reader is and how I can be a better storyteller to serve them. Ultimately, I want to tell the same kind of stories that I have been telling, but there is something nice when you have a mental picture of like a 10-year-old who's going to read this and make sure that it resonates with them in a specific way.
Do you feel as though that, through your writing of it over the last several years, that you've tweaked it to make sure there's some sort of lesson involved in there, or some learning aspect to it as well?
Again, I don't like to be overly didactic or educational. I like to sneak it in where I can.
Right.
And if there are lessons, it's more about sort of the heroic, moral and ethical things that that one should do. But for instance, I try to do it in a subversive way. So for instance, like if you were to read the first book, The Bloodbound Oath, the first character we were introduced to, his name is Prince Hrothgar. And we're with him for like a good first chunk of the story because it's a generational story. We don't get to Beowulf until maybe the third part. So the first part is very much focused on his grandfather when he's young and all the mistakes he makes. And he's essentially just not a very good person. He sort of sets this story in motion because of broken oaths, of himself not being particularly ethical or moral. And so sometimes, a kid will ask, well, is he supposed to be the hero? Because I don't identify with him. He's not necessarily a good person. I'm like, yeah, no, it's basically, this is the hero's journey in reverse. It's sort of what would happen if you didn't take the moral upright way and went in a different way. And, how does that ripple?
Right.
And essentially the answer to that is you have Beowulf at the end, who is the hero who's going to sort of rectify all the things that, the sins of the father, so to speak, were happening prior. So I try and approach it that way. In other stories, for instance, the Song of Roland, the hero of that is a French hero named Roland, and he's upstanding. He's forthright. He wants to do the right thing, but he has, a stepfather that's sort of pushing him in a different direction. So his moral quandary is trying to do what's heroic to save his king. But again, it's not totally on the surface. It's sort of underneath. And then, it's really cool to give these stories to these kids because they're super smart and they pick up on it and they understand like that struggle. It's been fun to, have these stories that are based on old, mythology and epics and try to tease out some of that ambiguity that lives in those epics in this new way in these comics. So hopefully I'm successful in doing that. That's at least what I try to do.
And as you mentioned, book 2, that's the larger one. That's the larger one.
Yeah, that one originally came out in 2010, and then we republished it in color in 2017. And it's like I describe it as the big swashbuckler. This is like Beowulf and Grendel's first adventure together. They're in France. They meet the great King Charlemagne and all of his knights, who are sort of precursors to the Musketeers. There's giants, there's elephants, there's roller coasters. It's all over the place. It was super fun to draw, and actually many of the characters who are in book 2 are some of my favorites, and there's some of the characters who I revisit in some of these songs and sagas. They're kind of like I kind of call them like the Avengers of France. They're these cool knights, and they're really fun to write for, and they're fun to draw. And the story that's in Songs and Sagas that features them is called Paladin's Tale. The idea here is that each of these four knights, they've been betrayed, they've been locked away in four separate prisons, and each one has to bust out of the prison in their own fashion.
In their own way. Oh,
yeah,
that's
one
cool.
uses his brains, one uses his bronze, one uses his wits. So that was fun to do, and I have a whole sheath of notes and stories ideas that I want to do with those guys because they're really fun to draw and create for.
So because as you mentioned, like, time is usually is the biggest enemy here. Have you ever been in a position where you're thinking about, well, that maybe, taking on some of it where you write out the script, but then hire the actual illustrator, and then it might be in a different style, but that way at least you can push forward and keep some more stories going?
Sometimes I'll think about that, but it doesn't linger too long, because for me, I mean, it's, as you said at the top, like, I'm a cartoonist. I write and I draw.
Right.
And so much of the writing is in the drawing, and so much of the joy for me is in the drawing. Even if it takes forever, it's fun to draw those characters, and it's fun to actually use the brush pen and get that perfect thick to thin line, and it comes alive in a way that if I gave the script to somebody else, even if I love their art, it's just like, I want to do it. I'm really, I get greedy. So yeah. I would be worried that they're going to draw better than me, and they might. Nobody's going to want to see my stuff anymore. So
if people want to learn more about Kid Beowulf, where's the best place they could go to? I
would send them to kidbeowulf.com. That's the home site. That's where you can actually read some comics for free right now. If you go to the comic section, I have a little archive there of some of the short stories that are in this collection. As I said, I'm rerunning Shield and the Dragon. That's where you get access to my Patreon. And I relaunched this site, maybe I think it was last year, the year before. Prior to the relaunch, it was really just a placeholder. And then I found, and I would run my comics like places on Go Comics or Tapas or Webtoon. And then I found, like, I really want to, like, keep my comics on my space. So I redid the whole site. So it's, so you could read the comics directly on the website on your phone. They're all carved up if you have a phone, and you'll read it scrolling, or else you'll read it if you're on your desktop as a full page as intended. So it's fun to have the control and the presentation. I can present this the way I wanted to, and so I urge people to go to kidbeowulf.com if they want all the best info, up to the minute dates, updates, and all that good stuff.
Right. And as you mentioned too, Lex, you have a great Patreon. I highly recommend people checking out and subscribing to your Patreon account as well. This is a point where you actually get bonus comics. You really get to learn a lot about and just get really in-depth stuff about Kid Beowulf. And for those to make this podcast evergreen, if you miss out, if you don't hear it in time to actually back Kid Beowulf Songs and Saga, to pre-order the book, it will be available through a link on your website as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
The publication date is October 2023 for the book. So that's firm. This Kickstarter crowdfunder is really helping those production costs along. And it's a way for folks, as you say, to pre-order the book. And of course, all books that are ordered, I do a sketch and a sign, and I put it together in a nice package. But yeah, I always make the books available on the website after these crowdfunders. And I just want to make sure that folks get access to the books any way they want.
Good and perfect. And like I gotta say, for those that are listening right now, this is an amazing deal that you can get an Eisner Award-winning cartoonist sketch card for $7. That is literally probably the best deal on the internet right now. So, yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Well, listen, Lex, you got to come back on when you got another project coming. This has been great.
Yeah, I know. I look forward to it. It's always fun to talk shop. I really appreciate those smart questions. It's if you can't already tell, I love making these comics, and it's just great to share with them.